Foot back to stop the ball, shoulder to catch the ball, coiled over people, knee upside down. Boy passing several people in a row, jumping with both feet on the ball. A little toe touch. The ball went in. Everyone could not believe it. Such a skill can be played by a child, but even less would they have thought. This boy, who couldn't even afford to buy sneakers, would later become a legend. His name was Pele. Born in a slum in Brazil, his only joy was playing soccer with his friends. They traveled through the streets of the favelas. No formal soccer, no systematic training. The complex environment made Pele more and more skillful. But his mother was very much against her son playing soccer, because his father was a professional player. Then he injured his knee and became disabled. Can only help people clean the toilet to earn a meager living. His mother did not want him to follow in his father's footsteps, but he did not. In that year, Brazil reached the World Cup final for the first time. The whole country had high hopes, but Brazil still lost the game. Father could not stop crying on the sidelines. Also deeply infected the young Pele. He spoke with great pride.
I'll win a World Cup for Brazil, I promise.
Children are always unaware of their own potential. Then Pele signed up for the Junior Cup without his mother's knowledge. With their excellent skills, they went well. They were scoring all the time, but no one was cheering for them, because they didn't even have a pair of shoes. They were ridiculed as a barefoot team by the rich kids next to them. To be able to participate in the game, they stole peanuts from the factory and sold them for money. They bought some used sneakers, but the size of the shoes did not fit their feet. Not long after the game started, they were crushed by the rich kids of the Kings. They were crushed. 6 o'clock. Just then Bailey saw his father watching the game. Remembered his father's words to him, never care about the eyes of others. You have to believe in yourself. So he immediately took off his shoes and went barefoot once again. He started with the ball on the back of his foot and dangled it over the knee and stopped the ball. Finally, with both feet on the ball, he passed 2 people in a row. He kicked the ball in with a little toe touch. He is not good at tactics. It's the flexible and versatile Renga ball skills. Dribbling the ball like a light dance. The Kings could only watch Bailey. He scored from all sorts of tricky angles. 2 goals and a hat trick. The whole game became Pele's personal show. The score was soon tied at 6-5. And then the whistle blew. They still lost the game, unfortunately, but the crowd was chanting Pele's name. The scouts of Santos also saw Pele's skills. He offered his father an offer. But just then the factory workers found them. To escape the chase, Pele took his injured friend into a cave. As the rain poured down, the cave suddenly collapsed. Bailey managed to escape, but his friend was buried in the cave because his foot was stuck. The accident had a big impact on Bailey. He blamed himself. He felt that he had killed his friend. From then on, he decided to stop playing soccer. He went to the hospital every day with his father to clean the toilets. His father knew Pele. He could see how much Pele loved soccer. In order to revive Pele's spirit, his father picked a mango. He shot it at a garbage can in the distance. It didn't go in, so he kicked another one. The son looked at his father's shabby kicks, couldn't resist a kick. The son looks down shyly, like a low-profile brag that he had scored. The father shook his head and smiled slightly. It was all part of his plan. He looked away and then kicked again. This time, the mango went into the trash can further away without a hitch. The rest of the day, the father began to train his son with mangoes. This practice is nearly 8 years' time. Bailey has become a 16-year-old boy. The proficiency of dribbling is far more than his peers. Mother happened to see them training. The scout's card, which had been sealed for a long time, was retrieved. From then on, Pele joined Santos' team. Finally his career began, and on the first day of training, he was told that Brazilian players were forbidden to use the Renga technique, because it was believed that the main reason why Brazil lost the 1950 World Cup. It was thought that the main reason Brazil lost the World Cup in 1950 was because of the fancy and unrealistic Renga technique. Pele knew very well, to abandon the old playing habits would require more effort than others. But for him, not using Renga was like having his soul taken away from him. Suddenly, he didn't know how to play. He missed a lot of passes on the training field. He failed to steal the ball every time. The coach had a look of disgust on his face. In a panic, Bailey lost his pace and collided with a player. In a trance, he saw his father throw a mango into the air. A mango was thrown into the air. A soccer ball fell down. The boy leaped forward, catching the ball on his chest and stopping it on his back. The coach yells at him frantically from outside the field. He was forbidden to use the Renga technique, but the boy didn't care. The crotch spin, facing 3 opponents in front of him, he toes a soccer ball and is lifted high into the air. In front of everyone's eyes of disbelief, he leapt into the air, an inverted golden hook. The ball made a beautiful arc in the air. Everyone was cheering for him when the ball was scored, but the coach called him with a grim look on his face.
What the hell was that?
I'm sorry.
Do it again.
With the confirmation, Pele is back in the game. He was able to come and go on the field with his skill. He scored 4 goals to win the match. At the age of 16, Pele began to make a name for himself. He began to play in many tournaments and was unstoppable. 1958 World Cup, Pele was selected as a national professional player. Both father and son were thrilled, but Pele had no idea. The coach of the national team still forbade him to use Renga, because in the 1950 World Cup, Brazil lost the game because of the Renga technique. The whole country was humiliated. The coach would not allow a repeat of the same mistake. Pele was relegated to the bench. If he wanted to start, he had to beat Mazzola. He was humiliated as a child. The white man who gave him the name Pele. He couldn't play Renga. It was as if Pele's soul had been taken away from him. The traditional European style of play. It gave him no advantage on the field. In a moment of hesitation, he was unfortunately tripped by someone. He suffered a serious knee injury. He became the smile of everyone's eyes for a while. Sitting in the lounge every day, watching the team play on TV, Bailey was at the lowest point in his life. Fortunately, he had the support of his parents.
Your father and I love you no matter what.
The situation in the knockout stage was not good. Brazil advanced to the last 8 at the expense of 3 injured players. The next game was against the Soviet Union. The coach had to use a spare player. This also meant that Pele could finally take the world stage, but he was so nervous that he vomited before going on the field. If the coach hadn't dragged him onto the field, he probably wouldn't have reacted himself. He was in the center of the world's public opinion, the deafening roar of the crowd. He was under pressure. He was taught a hard lesson in his first competition. Because of his small size, he was knocked around by the strong Soviets. He couldn't even catch the ball passed by his teammates. My father and my relatives were in front of the TV with their hearts pounding. At the end of the first half, the players didn't blame him, but he was ready to quit. He approached Mazzola in the lounge. He wanted him to play in his place, but Mazzola said to him,
That day back at Bauru, we showed everyone that part of us. The Ginga was beautiful. That's what we need now.
Back in the game, he saw the determined eyes of his teammates. Bailey began to wake up to the fact that the Renga boy was back. 1958 World Cup match scene. A black boy was laughed at by the whole crowd. People laughed at him for being a midget and called him a nigger. The boy was silent. He just showed them by his actions, his skill as a Renga player. He was in the World Cup like nobody's business. The ball is constantly carried over the defense. A shot from the back of the boy's foot. A shot. All Brazilians are in a frenzy. The European audience on the stage couldn't believe their eyes. They put it down to luck. But the surprise didn't end there. And then the boy towed the ball. And he shot straight at the goal. Once again, the green field was filled with cheers. One of the opposing players tried to hold the boy back, but it was all in vain. A Marseille pirouette, then a dummy and the boy crosses the line, and then another kick. It was just 25 minutes. Pele scored another hat-trick. The arrogant Europeans were shocked. The unheralded Brazil team defeated the mighty France. The World Cup final was reached. At the press conference before the final, the opponent was Sweden, known as the Nordic Giant. Both experience and tactics were far superior to Brazil's. No one would have expected this ragged team. At the press conference, they mocked Brazil as a handicap team. Some people are missing a finger. Some people have 2 legs that are not the same length. They've been depressed in poverty for years. After hearing these words, they became even more inferior. But Pele's father told him to believe in himself. More than that, he had to believe in the team. In order to help the team get their spirit back, Bailey proposed to turn the ball over and go to the lighthouse outside the hotel. This idea was quickly answered by the team. They started turning the ball over. From the dining room to the kitchen, it was a mess. The Brazilian team went crazy. Even the coach was touched by it. He told the players that people are a unique expression of the Brazilian team, and he made the real me. From now on, you are allowed to forget everything I have taught you. Use Renga's skills. Show the world the real Brazilian team. The next day, countless Brazilian fans gathered in front of their TV sets. They were expecting a miracle from Brazil. But it didn't start well. The Swedish players put the Brazilians under pressure right from the start. And the only hope of the team, Pele, was also taken care of by the Swedish team on the field. Less than 4 minutes into the match, Sweden scored a direct goal to get a point. The Europeans on the stage were shouting in unison. They all thought that the Brazilians were going to lose. But just then Pele looked up and saw a corner of the stage. There were only a few dozens of people in the seats reserved for the Brazilian fans. At that moment, Pele's spirit was completely ignited. No one was looking down on them. Then prove it to the world. Pele's toe-begging knee dribbling, the magnificent Renga pace, stunned every spectator in the arena. In perfect harmony with his teammates, a pass from the east to the west. What looks fancy to outsiders, often all it takes is a simple, unadorned shot. At this moment, the whole of Brazil was ignited. The Scandinavian giants began to doubt their own tactics, their previous studies on Brazil. In this moment, it was as if they had no use at all. This elusive pace, small but light and agile, confidence emanates from their bodies. A slide scores again. With a handful of Brazilians cheering, the entire stadium of Europeans is in disbelief. The game that seemed so unlikely to them, and now they've lost. The shock was followed by a hat-trick for Brazil. followed by a big 4 and finally a 5th goal for the 5th son. Tears welled up in the eyes of every Brazilian. This moment is not only for Brazilians. The arrogant Europeans were also completely convinced. Brazil defeated the mighty Nordic giants 5-2. A soccer star had risen. The era of King Pele had begun. The nickname that once insulted him became a name admired by millions around the world. He also fulfilled the promise he had made to his father years before. He led Brazil to win 3 consecutive World Cups. A one-man comeback. The struggle of billions of people around the world. This 17-year-old black boy tells anyone with his own experience, age, family pressure and blow are not the reason you choose to give up your dream. For King Pele, the only regret is not beating the Chinese team in the World Cup. Well, that's all for today. We'll see you next time.